This is a steel Rolex Daytona. On Rolex's own website, it costs a little over $16,000. That's the official price. It's also a price almost nobody actually pays because you can't just walk in and buy one. On the open market, the exact same watch trades closer to $30,000. Same steel, same movement, same everything. Roughly double the money. So where did that extra $14,000 go? Some of it bought real engineering. Some of it bought things that have nothing to do with the watch on your wrist. And the single biggest reason that number is so high? That one has almost nothing to do with the watch at all. Start with the part that does. Number 1. The movement. Put a $20 quartz watch next to a $50,000 mechanical one, and the cheap one keeps better time. Not by a little. A basic quartz drifts maybe 15 seconds in a whole month. A certified mechanical chronometer, the genuinely good stuff, is allowed to run -4 to +6 seconds every single day. Over a month, the expensive watch can be minutes off, while the cheap one has barely budged. And yet the movement is still the most honest reason a watch costs what it does. Here is why. A mechanical movement isn't trying to be a clock. It's a tiny machine, hundreds of parts, run entirely off a wound spring, assembled and regulated by hand to stay in line. That is genuinely hard to do well. And there are real tiers to it. A brand can buy a finished workhorse movement off the shelf, drop it in, and call it a day. Or it can design and build its own, which costs a fortune and occasionally earns it, with something a bot movement simply can't do, like running 10 days on a single wind. Then come the complications. A chronograph, a perpetual calendar that tracks leap years on its own. A tourbillon, a chiming minute repeater. Every one of those is more parts, more labor, more that can break, and the price climbs fast. Now the part that catches people out. That strict chronometer standard? Only about 6% of Swiss watches even bother to get certified. You are paying serious money for precision that the free clock on your phone beats without trying. That is the paradox the entire hobby is built on. The more you spend on the engine, the less accurate it usually is. Spend it anyway. Just know that's not really what you're buying it for. Number 2. Materials. Gold has been trading north of $4,000 an ounce, the highest it has ever been. So this is the cost driver people overestimate the most. Take one watch sold in 2 versions. A steel diver might run around $11,000. The same watch in solid gold, around $38,000. That's a $27,000 jump for swapping the metal. Sounds like the gold must be worth a fortune. A full gold case and bracelet holds maybe 100 to 150 grams of 18-karat gold. Even at today's record prices, the metal in there is a real cost, but it is still a fraction of that price jump. On a gold dress watch with less metal, the gold itself can be well under a tenth of the sticker. Picture a few $1,000s of actual metal sitting inside a watch that sells for 10 times that. The gold is real. The markup on the gold is the product. So what is the rest? You're paying for what the brand does around the gold. Gold is a pain to work with. It's soft, it warps, and the serious brands cast their own alloys in their own foundries to make it tougher and to control the exact color. That's real work. It's also a story they get to sell you. The same logic runs through every material. Steel sounds cheap, and as raw bar stock it is, but the hard, corrosion-proof steel the top brands use costs more to cut and finish than ordinary steel. Titanium is light and tough and a nightmare to machine cleanly. Ceramic doesn't scratch, but it's brittle and expensive to make. Sapphire crystal is dirt cheap as a raw material and a genuine cost to grind and polish dead flat. Across the board, the raw material is rarely the expensive part. What you turn it into is. Hold that thought because the next one is where the real money quietly hides. Number 3. Finishing and labor. Somewhere in Switzerland right now, a watchmaker is sitting at a bench with a file and a piece of soft wood, beveling the edge of a single bridge. Not the whole movement, one bridge. And it can take 15 to 20 hours to get that one edge right. This is called anglage, the hand polishing of the sharp inner and outer angles of the metal parts inside the watch, and it is some of the most expensive work in the entire industry. The grand master of it, a man named Philippe Dufour, finishes movements so perfectly that his watches now trade for hundreds of thousands of dollars, and he makes a small handful a year. Now here is what's almost funny about it. You will never see this work on your wrist. The case back goes on, and it's gone. The only way to even notice it is to pop the movement out and stare at it through a loupe. A machine can do most finishing now, fast and clean. But a machine physically cannot cut a sharp interior corner, because the tool is round, so the very hardest, most prized finishing still has to be done by a human hand, slowly, by someone who trained for years. Those decorative stripes you see running across a nice movement, they look three-dimensional, and they are completely flat to the touch. It's an illusion, applied by hand, that most owners will never feel. This is where serious money quietly disappears. Hours and hours of skilled human work on details that exist purely to be beautiful, that almost no one will ever see. A lot of the big brands have quietly given up on the very top tier of it, because it's slow and it doesn't scale, and they bet you won't notice. They're usually right. So the cruel joke of fine watchmaking is this: the thing that costs the most to make is the thing you need a magnifying glass to find. Number 4. In-house manufacturing. This is the one that sounds the most impressive and means the least, depending entirely on who is saying it. A brand that designs, builds, and finishes its own movements instead of buying them is doing something genuinely expensive. Building that capability, the machines, the foundry, the metallurgists, the engineers, costs a fortune up front. And the hardest parts to make are the ones you can't even see working. The hairspring and the escapement, the beating heart of the whole watch, are brutally difficult to produce well. And only a small handful of companies on Earth actually can. A brand like Rolex or Grand Seiko or A. Lang & Son has every right to charge for clearing that bar. That's vertical integration, and at the top, it is a real engineering feat. But the words in-house got so valuable as a marketing line that brands started gaming it. And here is the backstory that explains why. For decades, most of the industry quietly ran on movements from a single dominant supplier. Then, in the early 2000s, the group that owned that supplier started cutting everyone else off. Brands had two choices: spend years and serious money building real in-house capability, or fake it. The classic way to fake it is to buy a standard, off-the-shelf movement, swap the spinning rotor for one stamped with your own logo, change almost nothing else, and call the whole thing in-house. One famous brand got publicly humiliated years ago for doing exactly that. So when you see in-house on a spec sheet, the real question isn't whether it's technically true, it's whether it means anything. Did they actually engineer the thing, or did they just engrave their name on someone else's work? Telling those two apart is most of the skill in this entire hobby. Quick thing before the second half, if you're getting something out of this, hit subscribe. I do this every week, no sponsors, no affiliate links, just the stuff nobody at the boutique is going to say out loud. Because here is the turn. Everything we've covered so far is real. The movement, the metal, the finishing, the engineering. You can argue about whether it's worth it, but it is actual watchmaking. The next three things you pay for have almost nothing to do with the watch at all, and they are often the biggest chunk of the price. Number 5. The name on the dial. Two watches can roll off nearly identical supply chains. Same type of movement, same kind of case, built a few miles apart. And they can sell for 5 times the difference, with nothing separating them but the logo. That's the brand tax. And I want to be fair about it because it is not automatically a scam. A name like Patek Philippe or Rolex represents a century or more of trust, strong resale value, and the simple fact that people recognize it across a crowded room. That recognition is worth real money. And when a brand has genuinely earned it, charging for it is fair. The problem is that heritage is a battery, not a generator. A brand can coast on a reputation it built decades ago, long after the watches stopped justifying it. You see it constantly. A logo that used to mean cutting edge now just means we know you'll pay for the badge. And celebrities pour fuel on the fire. When a watch is on the wrist of every rapper, actor, and athlete you admire, you don't just want a good watch anymore. You want that one. At that point, the price isn't tracking the watch. It's tracking how badly you want to be associated with the name. None of that shows up under a loupe. There is no part inside the case labeled heritage. It's a feeling, and feelings, it turns out, carry the fattest margins in the entire business, which leads straight into how that feeling gets manufactured in the first place. Number 6. The ad that sold you the watch. In 2025, the luxury group that owns Tag Heuer signed a deal to sponsor Formula One worth around $1 billion over 10 years, taking the official timekeeper spot away from Rolex. $1 billion to put a watch logo trackside. That money does not appear from nowhere. It comes out of the price of the watches, which means you, the buyer, are quietly funding the commercial that made you want one. It's the same story with everything that surrounds the product. The celebrity ambassador on a multi-year contract, the full-page spread in the magazine, and the boutique itself. The marble floor, the leather chair, the glass of champagne, sitting on the most expensive retail street in the city. Somebody pays the rent on Fifth Avenue and Bond Street, and it isn't the brand absorbing it out of kindness. Every bit of that theater is engineered to make a 5-figure watch feel reasonable, even inevitable. And it works. By the time you're holding the thing in that perfect room, the price feels like the cost of joining something. That is not an accident. It is the most refined sales environment money can build, and you are standing right in the middle of it. None of that went into the watch. All of it went into the version of yourself you picture wearing it. So far, we've climbed from honest engineering all the way up through pure storytelling. But there is one last price driver, and it's the strangest of all, because it adds absolutely nothing to the watch, and somehow, the most to the price. Number 7. Scarcity. In 2021, Patek Philippe announced it was killing off its most famous watch, the Steel Nautilus, reference 5711. At the time, it retailed for about $30,000, if you could even get on the list, and those lists ran years long. The day they announced it was ending, the price on the open market didn't rise, it exploded. The exact same watch that had sold for $30,000 started trading well past $100,000. A special green dial version that retailed around $35,000 was changing hands for over $300,000 within weeks. One rare edition sold at auction for $6.5 million. Now listen closely because this is the whole point of the video. Nothing about those watches changed. Same movement, same steel, same finishing, not one screw different from the day before. The entire extra $100,000 was pure scarcity. You were not paying for a better watch, you were paying for a shorter line. This is the price driver with the least to do with the actual object and the most to do with the final number. A waitlist is not a feature. A limited run is a decision a marketing team made on purpose. A resale premium is just other buyers bidding against you. None of it is welded, machined, or polished into the watch. It is the air around the watch, and that air can cost more than everything inside the case combined. And that is the part that should bother you, if you let it. The most legitimate thing you can buy, a beautifully made movement, might be a quarter of the price. The least legitimate thing, the simple fact that you can't easily have one, can be most of it. So here's how to read any price tag from now on. Split it in two. On one side, the watchmaking. The movement, the materials, the hours of finishing, the engineering. That's the part you can actually hold, and it's the part worth paying for if you value it. On the other side, the story. The name, the marketing, the line out the door. That side can be worth it to you too, genuinely. Plenty of people happily pay for the feeling, and there's nothing wrong with that, as long as you know that is what you're doing. Go back to that steel Daytona we started with. $16,000 on paper, $30,000 on the wrist. Now you know exactly which half of that gap is the watch, and which half is everything else. Spend accordingly.